Hey there, and welcome to another episode of the show. Simon here, your favorite online transformation coach, coming back at you with another awesome episode of this show. And this is part one of a two-part show looking at pre and post workout nutrition. So we're going to dive into the pre-workout nutrition side of it in this particular episode. Look out for that one on post-workout nutrition so you get the full complete picture. So what are we going to talk about here right now? Obviously, there's lots of different aspects to pre-workout nutrition. There's protein, there's carbohydrate, there's fat, and there's of course all of those supplements out there, including your favorite luminous green pre-workout fuel, Beast Mode 4000, or whatever the fuck sort of weird ass name it's got, whether it's, I don't know, megaton anabolic, whatever, some fucking weird names come out of there. Is this stuff any good? Do you actually get any benefit from a pre-workout supplement specifically? Any pre-workout supplements? Any supplements in terms of having those before you train? And also in terms of that actual sort of like nutrition, the food side of things. Are you actually getting any benefit from that, and what should you be doing? So we're going to be covering all of that, and then looking at the whole same sort of thing in terms of the post-workout nutrition as well. So let's get straight onto it. Now let's look at actual food first of all. So what should you be having in terms of protein, carbohydrate, and fat before you have your actual workout? Now, largely speaking, it probably doesn't matter as much as you think it does. And it depends on what your goal is, it depends on where you're at, and all those different sorts of things. As with any of these questions, it comes down to that old phrase, it depends. Now, it depends is often the right answer, but it depends often doesn't actually mean much to you, because you come away from that thinking, well, it might depend, but I don't really fucking know what to do. So let's move past that and let's talk about different scenarios. So whether you are building muscle or whether you are trying to drop a bit of body fat, the actual timing of your pre-workout nutrition probably, as I said before, isn't as important as you probably think it is. It has some degree of importance, yes, probably more so from a building muscle point of view than it does from a fat loss point of view, but it does not really figure high in terms of all the other things you've got to think about. So yes, your calories, your macronutrients, getting your sleep, getting all your micronutrients and fiber and all those sorts of things are probably slightly more important. But in terms of protein, let's talk about that first. Now, probably you're going to want to have some protein before you train, because what we're trying to do here is maximize every opportunity you've got to build and retain lean muscle, because that's what you want. Whether you are a female who wants to quote unquote tone up, which actually just means build muscle, drop body fat, or you're a dude who wants to get fucking super ripped, jacked, whatever you want to call it. But even if you say, well, I don't want to get too big, you're not going to get too big. Don't worry. You know, you're not suddenly going to be fucking Tom Hanks. You're going to not go to that machine on the pier, put in 10p and say, I want to get big. And then overnight, boom, fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger just appears in your bedroom. Not like some sort of apparition. I mean, you turning into an Arnold Schwarzenegger type physique. Now, that's just not going to happen. Male or female, you aren't going to get this sudden thing where you become too big. You know, muscle doesn't happen overnight. You won't build a huge amount of muscle and then think, fucking hell, where did that bicep come from? Or where did those chest muscles come from? You're going to see this shit coming. So you can kind of say, well, actually, you know what? I'm about as big as I want to be. I don't want to build any more muscle. And then you've got your goal changes, your nutrition changes, your training changes to support maintaining where you're at rather than continuing to build. So don't worry about all of this sort of stuff in the sense of, I don't want to get too big, all that sort of business. Just forget it. It's just not going to be a relevant topic. So in terms of protein, what you want to try and do is maintain a positive balance in terms of your protein intake. Now, by that I mean you've got two processes happening. One is muscle protein synthesis, which is the process of building muscle, and muscle protein breakdown, which is the reverse. Obviously, you want to be more in the balance of positive than you do in terms of breakdown. Now, when that comes to pre-workout nutrition, really what you're kind of doing is saying, well, as long as I have, and I'm just using rough guidelines here, nothing really super exact, but just rough guidelines for practical terms. If you're having some form of protein 1 to 3 hours before you train, it's probably going to be sufficient. The closer you get to your actual training time, then your actual source of protein might change a little bit. For example, if you're within, say, an hour or 45 minutes to an hour before you actually start training, you're going to want something that's fast digesting. So therefore, you're going to go for something like a protein shake, whey protein shake, going to go in and out of the gut very quickly, and therefore be used quite quickly into the bloodstream, useful, etc., etc. So the closer you get to that workout period, then you might favor a protein shake. But if you are, having lunch and that is 2 hours before you train, as long as that lunch meal has got a decent amount of protein in it, then cool, that's going to be absolutely fine. So you don't really have to change your lifestyle, change all of these things to suit having an optimal diet in terms of your pre-workout nutrition. It's just not necessary to, rip everything to shreds and look at everything in minute detail, because it doesn't really matter. So as long as it's sort of in this 1 to 3 hour window. Now that's not like super scientific. That is just giving you a practical way to implement that advice. So that can fluctuate from day to day. It can just be something you set in your routine, but just hit that kind of 1 to 3 window and your protein intake will be fine. When it comes to carbohydrate, it's a case of if you want, you can have some. If you don't want any, don't have any. As an example, for me, I don't have any pre-workout carbohydrate. I train at 6 a.m. I have a protein shake. Sometimes I have a rice cake or two on the way. That obviously counts as carbs, but a lot of the time I don't. I just have the protein shake and I go. That's kind of, I find that protein is the bare minimum that I have. Carbohydrate though, there's nothing wrong with it. If you feel like you want that sort of hit of energy, yes, you can absolutely go for it. No problem there whatsoever. If you feel like you need it because having that carbohydrate, you kind of feel different, then cool. If that works for you, go do it. And then in terms of fat, not something you really need to worry about. A lot of people will tell you about, fat slows down the digestion and all this sort of stuff. I just wouldn't worry about it too much. I would just have your normal meal. Again, if it's 1 to 3 hours before, the closer you get, you're probably not going to have much fat in that protein shake, if any at all. So again, in practical terms, it's just not something to overthink and overly worry about. Then when we come to pre-workout supplementation, there's a whole raft of different things that are thrown at you here. Now, you've got your pre-workout supplements. So the things that you have in powder that turn the water luminous blue or luminous green, whatever it is, the Beast Mode 4000 crap. Now, here you're going to be, basically, a lot of these products are just going to be stimulants. So it's going to be a lot of caffeine and other stimulants to basically make you feel awake. So when you get to the gym, you have this thing, and then 20 minutes later, you feel, wow, you've had this hit, this rush, you're ready to go. That's kind of just stimulants hitting you. Now, yes, some caffeine in your diet will help. So caffeine can help from a performance point of view. Caffeine can help from a fat loss point of view by increasing metabolic rate a little bit, and also by being an appetite suppressant. You don't necessarily have to have the caffeine directly before the workout to have those fat loss and weight loss benefits. But if you want it from a pure performance point of view, then having some caffeine before you train can help. You just have to watch your intake across the course of a day. We all love a fucking cup of coffee, or 2, or 4, or 10. Now that has caffeine, as does chocolate, as does soda, all this sort of stuff has caffeine. Now you want to be having anywhere between 2 milligrams to 6 milligrams per day of caffeine. And that 6 milligrams really is a top end number. You don't really want to exceed that too frequently. So just bear in mind what your caffeine intake is across the day. Also bear in mind that if you're having caffeine late in the day, that's going to affect your sleep. Sleep is more advantageous than supplements for both building muscle and for losing body fat. So just bear that in mind as well. Now, other things that will be included in your pre-workout will be things like beta-alanine. Beta-alanine is a positive thing to have in your supplementation routine. However, it doesn't need to be taken first thing before you train. So you'll see a lot of these things will be like 15-20 minutes before you train. It'll give you that tingling sensation, like it itching like a motherfucker, like you're some sort of leper. Now, that is perfectly normal. Paresthesia, which is what that tingling sensation is just a side effect of the beta-alanine. It's perfectly normal, not going to do you any harm whatsoever. Some people like it, some people find it annoying. Some people have it because they think like, oh, okay, it's getting that tingling feeling, so this must be fucking working. So therefore, I'm now going to have a ragingly good workout. It's almost like this placebo effect. But actually, in terms of beta-alanine, you can space that out throughout the course of a day, and it will give you the dosage that you need, because it's not actually what they call an acute response. So in the sense, that means that you don't have to take it directly before you train for it to have an effect. You can have it spaced out throughout the day. It does require a bit of a loading phase, a bit of a broad, like random one. It's like 4 to 10 weeks. Generally speaking, I'd stick to the 4 weeks, and you go to 80 milligrams per kilo per day, spaced across 4 different servings. And then in a maintenance, you go to 40 milligrams per kilo per day, spaced across 4 different servings. I personally space mine across 2, but you can do it across 4. You can have it all in 1 if you want. It's just going to make no difference really in terms of the effect. So they would be the only real supplements that I would focus on. You've got people talking about citrulline malate, which I'd say in terms of where we are right now, inconclusive as to whether that has a huge benefit or not. BCAAs, we all know where we stand on BCAAs, no real point in having those. And lots of other different supplements you'll find in different pre-workout drinks that actually, in terms of material benefit for performance, probably not really worth it. So what you can do then is say, for example, I personally would have the caffeine, the beta-alanine, and a protein shake. So mix the beta-alanine, you can get that in powder, into a protein shake. You can have the caffeine in a pill form. You could have an espresso, because again, everybody loves coffee. And that would be a great way to go into your workout, providing it's not going to affect your sleep, and actually get maximum performance out of it. So in terms of pre-workout, it doesn't need to get any more complicated than that. Again, think about it as like 1 to 3 hour window. If you're having a normal meal, about 2 to 3 hours away from training is probably enough, as long as it's high in protein, to see you through and get optimal results. If you want something like really, really close to training, like an hour before, go more towards the protein shake route. If you want to go and have a pre-workout, cool, go do it. But also think about maybe buying the ingredients that work and are effective separately, and creating your own pre-workout that you can control the contents of, and go from there. So cool, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the show. If you did, let me know in the comments below. If you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, leave me a rating, a review, that's awesome. Also, don't forget to come and see me on Instagram at iron_paradise_fitness. Tell me what you thought of this show. Come and tell me that you love me. Come and tell me what your questions are, and come and tell me how I can help you. But for now, all I say is keep living the lean life, and I'll see you on the next episode of the show.